The reason I'm so mobile is just because I know how mobile the fish are. You know, that's quite an easy sort of speaks for itself. You know, they've got tails, they've got water, they can get about, you know, and the stuff that I've seen, you know, the way they can move so quickly, just like that, you know, I've seen it. You know, I'm always eyes on the pond, so I get to see all these things, and it's scary how quick they can move, so it makes me very reactive. But I'm guessing mainly it's, you know, I see fishing like hunting. I've got a lot of energy. You know, you've got to go and hunt them fish down. You know, if you're going out hunting, like shooting or whatever, you know, you don't just sit there and wait for the bird or whatever to fly into the lens. You know, you're moving for them, you know, or you're chasing them, you're working the bushes, you're sending the dogs in, you know. That's just a way of putting it, but yeah, that's the way I see it. You know, there's plenty always going on, there's always something going on. If you're sat in a position and you're not seeing anything, you're probably in the wrong position. You know, you need to be, you know, tree climbing is a big part of my fishing. You know, in the spring the fish are going to be coming into them shower areas, you know, to get that sun. But not only the sun, the naturals, you know, not only the fish come into them shower areas, the naturals come into the shower areas. You know, they come out of them deep silt beds that they've been hiding in over the winter, and they're coming for that heat just like the fish are. And the fish know that. The amount of times that I've been walking lakes in the spring, and all of a sudden I'll just see the margin just littered with snails, and then the next day or that day I'll see the fish there. You know, they know what's going on, you know, so I'm always just reacting to everything, and I'm watching lakes wake up. The spring is just a brilliant time of year, you know, because everything is just untouched in the edges as well. You know, like I said, I know I'm focusing on the edges a lot here, but you know, I love it in the edges. I'll be getting up certain trees and I've almost got a photographic memory of what that margin looks like. You know, it could be the day before, the week before or whatever, and I get back down and all of a sudden there's a little parting in the weed and the gravel's showing through, and it's like, well, that weren't there last night, or that weren't there last week. So I know where them fish have been in that period that I was last in there, you know, and it's almost like I can be at the pond without even being there, you know, or you know, it could be a case of I've applied a little bit of bait there, you know, and then I do a lap and I get back round and bang, the bait's gone, the spot's changed totally. It's not birds, it's fish, it's cleared right off. You know, them things for me in the spring, you know, you're gonna watch these spots grow and then you're gonna watch them blow. You know, it's just, oh man, I love the spring light. I love finding and watching fish just as much as catching them, really. That's the battle. I think, you know, I think catching them can be the easy part. Finding them is definitely the hard part. You know, sort of, I think I've learned by a lot of mistakes in the past of, you know, where I've got it wrong. But it's all about that. It's the getting it wrong to then getting it right. You know, I feel like I always put in the right approach now once I've found them. But it's all about finding them, and the better I've become over the years, you know, I sort of find them in certain areas, and it's allowed me to be able to single out and target certain fish. It's literally all about finding them for me. You know, I get a real buzz out of it, you know, just watching them in their sort of natural environments, watching their behaviours, you know, watching how they react to certain angling pressures and weather conditions and all that, you know, all them things. Oh, it's honestly, it's just, it's like now, you know, I'm frustrated that I'm not being able to climb trees. You know, I feel like I'm held back. You know, I want to be in other places. You know, obviously I'm doing this, but yeah, it's just like I'm addicted to being like on my toes, looking, finding. You know, I'm happy if I get home and I've learned some valuable information from a session. You know, which I always do. You know, where the fish aren't, where they are, you know, spots that have been made, you know, certain fish that are found in certain areas, certain behaviours of them, who the friends are, you know, who they knock around with, where they go, them little haunts, you know, all them pieces of information are priceless to me, you know, and watching them show and just all them things, that is what makes fishing for me, much more than just sort of turning up and putting some rods out and hoping for the best. And yeah, sometimes you're going to get it right, sometimes you're going to get it wrong, but for me, if I see a certain fish in a certain area, apply an approach and catch that fish, like, wow, do I feel like I've earned that bite, you know, or did I really hunted that one out and sussed its behaviours, you know, and just got it right. I'd rather do that once than catch 100 fish just through just chucking some rods out. For me, that is what it's all about, finding them, catching them. Never do I get my head down, you know, I'll never be sort of put off. I mean, I suppose the only time that I get sometimes frustrated is when there's like an out of bounds or something, you know, and certain fish are sat in certain areas for days on end, and I know they're there and I can't get near them, and you know, or there's a rule stopping me from doing what I want to do, you know. So yeah, generally that's the only time that I get frustrated. But apart from that, when them fish are playing hard to get, wow, you know, I'm a bloke, you know. I think we're all the same, you know. It's the thrill of the chase that we all love, isn't it? You know, it's the same with the women and that, you know. Just like it's all about that, you know. You doing, you know, as my granddad would say, you're courting them, you know. That's the best bit. You text in, next minute you're sending a few pickies and that, you know. That's it for me. That's the way I see fishing, you know. I see a fish show and then I've got up the tree and I've seen it working in a little spot, and then I've spotted what fish it is, you know. It's that thrill of the chase. They're getting it wrong, they get it right, and you know, the thing is with me is I think I'm quite a positive person, so I'll turn a negative into a positive, you know. That's when I'm on these tuitions, you know, it's something that really opens lads' eyes straight away, you know, when I'm doing that first initial lap, watercraft or what have you. You know, I'll say about turning negatives into positives, you know. So not finding fish is a really good one. I'll be like, take a positive from not finding them, because if you're not finding them, you know, that's something to be positive about, you know, because you've found where the fish aren't. You know, so if you can find where the fish aren't, it's that process of elimination. I know I've said it before, but it's that process of elimination, and you can make a very big pond, a very small pond. I'll give you an example. Christchurch, it's 8 acres, you know. There's probably a good 10 trees that I can get up to good heights. You know, it's not all about the trees, you know. You could just be looking in the edges from the ground, but yeah, I get up these trees and I can see all the way to the bottom for 20 yards, and then I can see the probably 6-7 foot of the upper layers for another 40 yards. And if I get up all them 10 trees all the way around the lake, generally I will find the fish. But if I don't, that's telling me where they are, because I've found where they're not. You know, that I'll turn anything negative. You know, a lot of people say to me like, you know, it's middle of the winter, I'm getting up trees in freezing cold conditions, you know, looking into sort of 2 foot of water under bushes and all that. But for me, mentally, I've got to cure my urge to say, right, the fish aren't there, they're not there, they're not there, they're not here. Right, they're out there, or they could be here, they could be there, you know, and I'm going to focus attention into them areas, you know. I'll never be swayed by anything, you know, to get my head down. I'll always be all guns blazing. Most important key elements for me for locating fish is your eyes. You know, I know that one speaks for itself, but your eyes are going to tell you everything. You know, the fish are going to tell you where they are, but you've got to use your eyes for them. You know, your ears as well. You're listening out for them in the dark. You know, but not only that, you can't always. I've actually just seen a fish on the other side. You can't always have your eyes on every part of the lake, you know, so you could be looking this way but you hear something this way. So your eyes and your ears speak for themselves. They're your main senses, and to be fair, you know, as soon as you lose your eyes in the darkness, your ears come out to play, you know, and vice versa. But yeah, also on top of that, I'd say good set of binos. You know, I've got the Fortis ones. They're bang on, you know, because they stay very clear at range, you know, and once I've sort of honed in on an area, and it could be a very long way away, you know, I need to see further. On top of that, glasses. I always say the glasses I use, again, Fortis, not just trying to plug it, they're the ones that I use, and I use the amber lens. It's all about the amber lenses for me. Look, on a sunny day, flat calm, we can see fish without lenses, you know, but for me, like I've said, I'm always looking for fish. It could be a dull day, it could be, you know, overcast, it could be choppy, it could be the middle of winter where the sun isn't getting out. That's where the amber lenses really come into play, because they're going to brighten up that water column. I say make a dull day bright. It could be it could even be a sunny day, but you've got into this bush that's really dull and dark, and you can't see down there. If you put in dark lenses in a dark area, you're going to totally void that water column, whereas these amber lenses, they're really brightening it up. You know, you might just see a shadow or a shape deep down. You know, some people say like, what you're going to see in that and on the end of a wind in rain and chop, you know, but you might just see a shadow just go over a shiny spot, you know, anything. And I always say that as well. If you think you've seen something, you probably have. You know, your mind, you think maybe your mind's playing tricks on you, you've seen something, but you're almost trying to maybe convince yourself you haven't.
So is that cap on your head, is that just to look cool? Does that pay it as well?
The cap for me is just to look cool, you know. Sometimes I wear it sideways. No, you've got to have a cap, you know. You've got to block that light out, you know. I used to wear a little bit of you know, one like Perry off Kevin and Perry, but you know, I like the peat one now, and a flat peat. That's just to keep the light out, you know. Rather than doing this, you know, I always need a hand as well, because when the sun's bouncing off the water, I don't want to have a hand like this, because I need a hand for blocking the glare off the water. You know, if the sun's really glaring, I'm going to need a hand out here to block that glare. So yeah, this is just for keeping the sun out of my eyes. Everything I see is like leading on to something or building up to something. I'm putting it into my like almost mental plan of what's going on out there in the lake. You know, that's what I'm doing. I'm structurally building what the fish are doing, you know, from the morning onwards throughout the day, you know, and then through the night, you know, and then again throughout the year as the months go on. You know, it's a big plan, a big jigsaw puzzle that I'm putting all together. And I always think, you know, it could be so far from the truth, but, you know, I've got logic. It's based on logic, things that I've seen with my own eyes or read in the night, you know, what these fish are doing. They're telling me what they're doing. And I just feel like I'm so in tune with my surroundings and what's going on. You know, it's just so much better than, you know, at least I'm not just guessing, turning up and going, oh well, mate, he's had 2 out of that swim, so I'm going to go in there. You know, I'm fishing on sort of my terms, you know, based on what I've seen and what I think the fish are doing. And the more you sort of get into sort of watching and learning and logging and processing everything that's going on based on the time of year and the conditions and the angling pressure and all them things, the more you start to see patterns emerge, and you can start to, the amount of similarities I now see in lakes, because I've seen these things time and time again, you know, and you start to see, I'd say each different fish has its own sort of personality, and the lake, sorry, has its own personality. But you know, you see a lot of similar things, and the more you're sort of doing it, you know, I feel like I can almost turn up and get very in tune with a lake very quickly now, because I'm doing all these things. When it comes to watching certain fish, it definitely helps you target fish, you know, or single them out. You know, you're getting to learn everything, you know, their behaviours around certain things, you know, so it could be around certain types of bait, certain colours, you know, if we're talking about fishing situations. It could be its little haunts that it likes to get in, places that it doesn't like to get in, you know, that you can almost void out after a certain amount of time looking in certain places. If you're not seeing that certain fish there, you know, you can write that out. You know, the fish that it knocks around with, the way it swims, you know, the fish that it doesn't knock around with, you know, all them things, different, there's just so much. And the more you sort of locate that certain fish, the more you can piece it together, learning its patrol routes, you know, there's loads, and the list is absolutely endless. You know, they've all got definitely got little personalities, and there's a way of zoning in on that. And you can learn little bits of snippets of information. You know, it's about watching and actually processing what's going on, rather than actually just sitting there watching that fish. Oh, there it is. You know, I'm constantly like, what's it doing? What can I take from this bit of information? You know, there's loads of stuff going on out there. You know, it's just about opening your eyes to it. Some of the things I've seen fish do is scary, you know. So it's so much so, some of the stuff I wouldn't even tell to people, you know, if they weren't sort of like-minded like myself and experience these sort of things. You know, for example, you know, I've seen fish feeding from really high up in the water layers, you know, sort of 6 inches up, you know, and sucking all the tiny little pieces, you know, all the pellet and powders and little chops and things up from a real height, you know. So what do I do in that situation? You know, I'm going to use a minimum of a 6-inch rig, you know, and I want that bait to be nice and light like all the freebies out there. And flip reverse of that, I've seen them feed them really low, but just grazing, you know. They go over this bait and you think, oh, it's all going to be gone, but only the little pieces of hemp and pellet are gone, so they're controlling that suction. Again, balanced baits is something that I only do now because of them things that I've seen. Other examples of behaviours are on Stoneacres, there's a fish called the white-tip common. Used to knock around with bite mark all the time. It's one of his little friends, and it used to come in. You know, this is no coincidence that it happened, because it happened a few times. You know, I'd have a rig set up in the edge, you know, where I'd seen them grazing around or what have you, and the white-tip common would come in first, bite mark would back off, and it'd almost suss out where that rig was, you know, and just sit straight down on the rig. You know, and then almost start pivoting. Bite mark would come in, they'd be cleaning out all the bait, and they'd just swim off. And again, this isn't just once or twice, this is 3-4 times I see this happen. How do I combat that, you know? That was a really scary thing to see, you know. I was thinking, how many times has that happened to me out in the pond? If I'm seeing it happen in the edge, it's obviously going on out there, and it sort of spoke for itself where, you know, bite mark was really rare fish, and that white tip common I've never seen on the bank, you know, and they're the reasons why. One thing I'd do there is always fish 2 rods on one spot. You know, if I'm targeting that fish, like I did bite mark, whenever I was fishing a spot, I'd always fish 2 rigs, you know, because there's only one white tip common that can sit on one rig. That's leaving a live rig out there. This is just me in my mind, you know, how do I process that information? Probably the most scary thing that I've seen the fish do was the Burfield common, you know. That definitely had a little personality of its own. You know, some of the things that I learned about that fish that definitely stood me in almost good stead for when I was chasing it. One of the first things I noticed is when it had its hump out and it was swimming around, the little top lobe of its tail would come out, but it'd be about 3.5 foot behind it, you know, and there was only one fish in there that long. Why did I need that piece of information? I could see that fish with a hump out the water from 200 yards away through the binos. If I saw that little lobe of the tail, I knew it was it. I didn't need to be up the trees, you know, and I could almost watch its patrol routes, where it was going. You know, that was a massive piece of information. But one thing I did see that was real scary was it used to have a little mate. I called it pointy face at the time. It's got a twisted mouth. It's a deformity, it's not mouth damage. It's a real old original and a fish that I'd never known to have been caught out of there. And it knocked around with it quite a few times. You know, I see it, you know, on more than one occasion with it, 3-4 times, and it was almost like it was mothering it all the time. You know, when I saw them together, the common would be the big girl, the Burfield common would be in the lead, you know, and pointy face or the twisted, whatever you want to call it, twisted mouth common would be just behind it. That'd be leading the pack almost. And if it was out, they'd get into an area and the little one would sit off in the snags and the big girl would go around, you know, mooching around and finding areas where they want to graze. You know, it was almost protecting it. And it was just its little mate, you know. I think it was just mothering it, like I say. And the scariest thing I saw it do, and I've actually got it on video, was where I put out 3 mixers and it takes a mixer and it goes down and it swims over and it goes over to the little one and it goes underneath it, and I saw the mixer come out of its mouth. I've got it on camera there, and it releases it and the little one sucks it in. You know, and when I saw that, I never told anyone what I'd seen, you know, because people are going to think I'm mad. But now, since then, you know, I processed that information and thought, you know, I'm only gonna, how do I process that? I didn't know it had a deformed mouth. I just thought, you know, it's mothering it. It's really weird. But the way I processed it was, it only likes little tiny things, you know, no big baits, you know, and I thought it might be a bit more sort of susceptible to a bite if there was little bits down there, because it was obviously, it had this little hole of a mouth and the mother, it was feeding it little bits and bobs, or, you know, they'd be more susceptible to a bite on small bits and bobs anyway. So I only started using small bits and bobs. And also, again, same as bite mark, 2 rods on the spot, because the last thing I wanted to be doing was having 1 rod on the spot, I get a bite and it'd be the little one, and then I'm left with no rods on the spot and the big girls out there. And that's exactly what happened. I had 2 rods out on the spot, I had 1 bite and it was the little one, and I had another bite about 15 minutes later, 10 minutes later, and it was the big girl, you know. So, like I say, you know, some of them things might sound a little bit unbelievable, but I've seen these with my own eyes, and, you know, I'd like to think that I've sort of put these things into practice and I've achieved them, you know. So it sort of speaks for itself as there is some truth in there. And even if I am so far from the truth, you know, at least I'm sort of thinking and applying certain things from what I'm seeing. I think there's definitely been a lot of times where I've spent a lot of time looking and not enough time fishing. But, you know, for me, I can get over that, you know, because I'm always learning, you know, and as long as I'm happy, as long as you're happy with what you're doing, it doesn't matter, you know. Even if you go down there and you camp with a mate all week and you don't look at the lake, if that's what you're happy doing, then that's all right, you know. You never get told, you know, that you should be doing something. You know, if you're looking to learn, then obviously you're gonna be, you know, you're gonna be processing what people are telling you to do. But, you know, if you're happy in your fishing and what you're doing, you know, that's the way I see it. You know, I spend a lot of time looking, but I'm satisfied with that. And the thing is, for me, is, You know, a lot of people know that, you know, I do move a lot, I'll be chasing fish, it's a lot of hard work, it can sometimes amount to nothing. But for me, I'd much rather react to something and get it right than not react to it and get it wrong, if that makes sense. So the times outweigh the other times. You know, sometimes I've sat there, not made a move, and I've been like, should have moved, what would have happened, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But you know, the times that I've moved and then it's paid off and it's like, wow, I deserve that. You know, that they outweigh the times when I could have been sat around on rods, you know, without a doubt for me. I think I definitely considered myself an in the edge angler, you know, and not so much always fishing in the edge, but always looking in the edge, you know, and that's what it's about for me. Again, just relating back to finding the fish and putting everything into practice, you know, and getting it right. And what I learn in the edge, I put out in the pond, so I can do both. I definitely say I prefer it in the edge because I can look and see what's happening, you know, as the fish just spooked off the line, as it done the rig, you know, as it cleared me out, you know, all them things I can react to because I've physically just seen it happen. Whereas out in the pond, you know, you can sometimes be second guessing yourself. But you know, all the stuff that I'm doing out in the pond is based on stuff that I've learnt from in the edges. So I'm a bit of a 50-50 angler, I'd say. You know, I can do both. I'd say I'm a bit of an all-rounder, you know, strengths and weaknesses just like everyone else. But there's definitely, I wouldn't say strengths and weaknesses, I'd just say, you know, I can pretty much angle for them in all different ways, but there's definitely ways I prefer, and in the edge is definitely one. But wow, if I've got something going, or I've been baiting areas, or I'm on fish and it's out in the pond, I can sit on my hands just as much as the next man, you know, and just reap the rewards. The best advice I could give to someone who's never gone like that extra mile of putting in all that extra effort is just like, wow, the feeling of it, like, I can't even explain it. You know, when you've put all that effort in and you get it right and it all comes together and it's all based on things that you've done, you've found, you've seen, you've failed at and then got right, you know, like I can feel it in my body now. Like that euphoria is probably the best word for it. Like the feeling of it is 10 times better than any other type of capture. You know, it's when you put in that extra effort, it's the same as anything in life. You know, if you're giving something, you know, on a plate, it's just not the same as working hard for it. You know, same as anything in life. Wow, like putting that in the extra little bits of effort, fishing at 110%. Wow, you get 110% back.